Well, honestly, to me, it feels like the NASCAR championship at Phoenix Raceway was just, I don't know, a few weeks ago, but it's been a while, and actually Daytona is right on the horizon. Welcome to the Inside Lane on Sports 360 AZ. I'm your host, Devon Henry, to talk to us a little bit about how NASCAR kind of changed the industry of sports and entertainment in general. We're bringing in a guy who's everywhere, whether it's during the pandemic, before the pandemic started, everything going on at Fox Sports. Join us on the Inside Lane. He's a motorsports broadcasting veteran of over 2 decades, a 10-year host of NASCAR Race Hub, and a member of Fox Sports since 2006. The Swiss Army knife of NASCAR on Fox from Madison, Indiana, it's Adam Alexander. Adam, thanks for joining me.
You got it, Devin. Thanks for being here, and thanks for that great introduction.
Hey, well, it's great to have you on the show, and of course, this is the off-season. I know it's been different than past years. You mentioned you're more energized, so what does this off-season look like for you, and hopefully getting a little bit of family time?
We had a lot of family time. As you know, being from Phoenix and hosting the championship race, that championship race was 2 weeks earlier, right around 2 weeks earlier than what it normally is, which basically bought all of us in the NASCAR industry, at least in the seat that I sit in, an extra 2 weeks of the off season. And when you consider that our hours had shifted and our days were less because of the pandemic and limited people in the studio throughout the latter part of the season, you know, this off season has felt like forever to me, which is a great thing. It's meant wonderful family time, and my kids have been on and off again school because of the pandemic and how the local school system is handling that. So we've all been inside these 4 walls a lot together, and we've survived that. And that's been a good thing. And, you know, despite all the family time, and it's wonderful, can't get enough of it. I'm really looking forward to what 2021 has in store at the track.
Hey, well, that sounds great. I know not all families love to stay within 4 walls for too long, and it's been a while, so it's good to hear everything is going well over there at your household. But looking back at November, Phoenix Raceway hosts the championship for the first time, nearly 2 decades since it was at anywhere other than Homestead, and Phoenix Raceway tried their best to have a championship atmosphere during COVID. And you know what? It went well for the most part. Obviously, COVID changed a lot of things to do the championship, but they will have one more chance to host the championship. They hope to host it for multiple years afterwards. But from your perspective, Adam, what are your thoughts on Phoenix potentially being a championship site for NASCAR, not just next year, but in their hopes moving forward as well?
I'm a fan of it. I was excited about it when they made the announcement. I thought Miami did such a nice job for so many years. And I think that racetrack down there is unique, even though it's 1.5 miles. I think the characteristics of Miami opened the door for it to have some really good races on that championship Sunday evening. Having said that, you know, when you look at Phoenix, it's one of the more unique tracks that we go to, a ton of short track characteristics. You couple that with the changes that have been made just to that venue, and I think it really is a special place for the fan to go and experience a race. I've always said that backdrop is one of the greatest scenes we have in NASCAR. Then you add in all the technology and the many upgrades that they made to the facility itself. I think Phoenix as a city is used to hosting championship events. I mean, you know, Final Four, Super Bowls, and the list goes on and on. Tremendous championship golf in that area. So to see NASCAR go there for the championship race, I think is outstanding. Disappointed as you and everyone else was that it didn't get to go, you know, top shelf in regard to the fan experience because there were a limited number there in November. But across the board, I think that's a real good spot for the final race.
And what do you think the chances are of Phoenix hosting past 2021? Obviously nothing official, it's just 1-year contract.
Well, I think part of that will go to what does NASCAR want to do with the schedule across the board. And I think one thing we've seen, and we knew this would happen post 2019 and 20, is there would be some big shifts in the schedule. We saw a little bit of that in 2020. We're seeing even more of that with some new tracks coming on to the schedule in 2021. And I think we'll continue to see that grow and evolve. And I think that door has now been opened. I think some of what we see in the schedule going forward will come down to what kind of results the tracks are able to get in 2021. I like the idea of the championship race and the all-star race and some of these events moving around a little bit so that maybe you can bring in some new fan bases and give other tracks opportunities. But if you were to single out one particular place, Phoenix is great for so many reasons, not to mention the fact that you're almost guaranteed great weather there regardless of when you go, which is a nice bonus in NASCAR circles to know you're not going to have to fight Mother Nature on a race weekend.
Chatting with Adam Alexander here from Fox Sports, and last year, all eyes were on NASCAR. They were the first major sport to return. They are the only sport to have a full season and also completed on time, but obviously took a lot of changes. No more practice, no more qualifying, very strict rules in the infield. From what you saw in 2020, what do you think NASCAR learned about itself in the industry getting through the coronavirus pandemic?
Well, I think that, if you go back to the fall of 2019, late summer, that's when NASCAR really started to show their hand a little bit on what they wanted to do with the future of the sport, with schedule changes. We were learning a lot more about the next-gen car. There was a tremendous amount of buzz about a new manufacturer that could be coming down the line with this new engine that's going to be introduced in 2023. And so I felt like there was a real strong foundation for the future of the sport. And then you get this huge curveball in 2020 with the pandemic. And I think NASCAR took another layer of education in saying that maybe what's best for our teams is racing sometimes twice in a weekend and doing these double headers. Maybe it's okay if we race midweek. We can do racing without practice and qualifying and put on a tremendous show, and it's going to save a tremendous amount of money for the race teams. I think there's a lot of details that need to be figured out. But for me, the one biggest takeaway from 2020 is NASCAR being forced to go without practice and qualifying, and the door that opened up for the teams, and how all of our eyes were open to just how good the product can be if the first time we see the cars on track in a race weekend is when they're actually taking that green flag.
And what changes do you see, even if it's off the track, not including the lack of practice and qualifying, do you see potentially sticking around post this COVID era?
I think that's going to be hard when you fast forward to 2022, because that's when we'll have the next gen car. And we haven't had a ton of testing because of the pandemic. And so 2021 is going to be a critical year to figure out where we stand with that and what next steps will be taken to ensure that we have a rollout in 2022 with that next gen car being exactly what everyone hopes it will be. But because there will be some unknowns and some uncertainties, probably some new teams in the mix, I think you're going to have to reintroduce at some level practice and qualifying in 2022. We're going to see it some in 2021 at the new venues that are on the schedule. We'll see it at Daytona. We'll see it there in Phoenix for the championship weekend. The Coke 600 is another event on the schedule that will have practice and qualifying. Beyond that, it's just going to be at the new tracks that you see on the schedule. I think we'll see more of that come back in 2022. I feel like, though, the overall format will change and these weekends will continue to be condensed.
One more question before I let you go. Last year, we saw so many leagues try to bring up esports. They're professional athletes doing esports, and none of them really stuck except for iRacing. NASCAR drivers competitively racing on a sim platform, doing esports. And you yourself, you're going to be announcing a little bit with Darrell Waltrip and Larry McReynolds with the Monday Night Racing League on iRacing. That includes almost every single week guys like Kyle Busch, Ryan Vargas, Connor Daly, Ron Capps. This has seemed to have worked the sim racing world. How do you think that something like iRacing is changing the professional athletes themselves, not just on the track getting some sim practice time, but off the track as well? Some of these drivers are on this a lot compared to, the 2K League. Man, that was gone.
It's Nick DeGroot who wins the Carlisle Tools by Napa.
To me, what separates iRacing and motorsports in general when it comes to the setup on sim versus all the other gaming systems that are used in stick and ball sports is this is real competition. This is not a video game where you have a controller in your hand and you're playing it on your television. You truly, and you know this, Devon, you've been competing. This is true competition where you're setting up the car, you're feeling the energy of what's happening in the event, which makes it, to me, as close as real is what you can experience in sports. And I think the other great thing about it is the connection from the different motorsports worlds into iRacing. You mentioned Ron Capps, Connor Daly, Santino Ferrucci did a lot of racing with us on Wednesday night iRacing. There's been so many guys from outside the NASCAR world that merge with those in NASCAR. And I think it's fun for the various disciplines to compete against one another. So to me, it was a real win, and it came along at a wonderful time when everyone desperately needed it.
Well, Adam, appreciate the time. I'll let you get back to your offseason a little bit. We'll see you in Daytona here in just a few weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me on today.
This is the Inside Lane on Sports 360 AZ. Be sure to keep it to Sports 360 AZ for everything going on in the world of motorsports here in the state of Arizona.